sorry, hey guys. We just did a live stream. Yep, we just did a live stream on Apple. If you guys missed that, we're back. And yeah, so we're gonna be starting. Uh, um,
Alright, so let's start with the early stages of Apple.
And yeah, so my friend,
two computer hobbyists, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, were working together to create a computer, and they ended up calling it the Apple One. And the Apple One, he decided to build the Apple II with limited configurability. And what happened was it was just not up to the mark, and it didn't do as well, and that made people think that the Apple II was of lower quality, and it's kind of sad that this happened, and this ended up causing multiple fights between Steve Jobs and Wozniak in the early 80s, and Wozniak ended up Wozniak and Steve, it just caused some hurdles here and there, and they started working together to release the Mac, and soon the Mac became a huge hit, and Skylar will explain why, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I'm sure many of you guys have heard about the MacBook Pro, so let me try to put a quick image on the screen for everybody. Give me a second, sorry about that. Okay, sorry guys. So many of you I'm sure many of you have heard from the MacBook Pro. Of course, isn't as popular as the new as the iPhone, which is the Apple's biggest hit. Yeah. So, 1 second. Let me. Hope you guys can see everything well. Okay, so many of you have heard about the new MacBook Pro that just came out. So the also the first MacBook Pro. So the first MacBook Pro it wasn't as like good as you thought. Like so of course it's not as good as today, but so it's the first MacBook Pro was available in white and dark colors, white and black, and it released on June, or about like a long time back, and it used an Intel Core processor and a 945 GM chipset. So the MacBook. So Tyler will actually be talking about the MacBook, and I will be talking about the iPhone.
So sorry, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. So let's start with the original Macintosh. So the original Macintosh was a huge success because it incorporated everything that was actually needed at that time, and this did include all the ports and the air cooling, traditional, reliable things that everything needed, and this assured everyone that Apple made good quality products, and it was very, very reassuring, because a lot of people they just thought that they just thought that Apple was just some knockoff thing, and they weren't doing it well, and they ended up releasing more and more versions of the Macintosh, and later they ended up expanding the lineup, and then finally we get to the MacBook. And the MacBook back then, it uses an Intel Core processor. So now at the beginning, Intel thought that Apple needed them, but as soon the sales came along, it became clear that when Apple left Intel for a little bit, it became clear that Intel needed Apple as a profit, and this this is just a very interesting phenomenon because that's when Intel, as such a big company, realized, and such an experienced chip maker, realized that they're no match for this Apple, and they made like new chips. And soon new chips would come out like the M1, which would absolutely hyper boost the efficiency and what the Macs could do.
Yeah, so the M1 chip is, of course, a chip used in the in the new MacBooks. It's actually it's actually much. I've heard it's much faster, and because Apple were actually taking chips from Intel, but now they've stopped and they've created their own chips. So now they've created their own chips and they're making their own types of chips, so they don't have to pay use Intel's.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit and go back to 2007. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. So back in 2007, Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone, and this is a completely secret process. And this is very interesting. And the problem is that that a lot of people, when they saw it, they wanted to replicate it. It had to be top secret, but luckily the sales weren't a problem. They sold thousands immediately, and that was very good for the company, and it just couldn't afford not to sell, and it did, and it sold really well. Yes, it may not have been the best, but it was a game changer of the time. It was the best of the time, and it was certainly worth buying in customers' eyes.
At that
So
time, yeah, at that time making like a Mac, an actual computer was really hard. Now they have like robots that, because if someone makes just one computer, they can just duplicate, like they can just copy, and it's like if you write a huge passage and you want to distribute that passage between like 20 kids, or if you print a paper and you need to distribute it between 20 students, that'll you just have to make the copy of 200 or 20 papers, just like that. If you just design one Mac, you easily know how to design more, so you can design much more and just sell it to everybody.
exactly. So basically, the designing process is the most expensive, and making more and more, that's called scaling. If you don't know. So now speaking of production, Apple never actually produced things themselves. Now they go to Foxconn, but a lot of their a lot of their what do you call it, parts, they actually came from Samsung, and this starts an interesting relationship between Apple and Samsung, because Apple and Samsung, they were actually friends. And yeah, Samsung was founded much earlier, and it was more like a local commerce company in Korea, but it soon grew, and Apple started to get supply. They started to use Samsung as their supplier, and this obviously started to cause some problems when Samsung tried to make their own phones. And Steve Jobs is kind of like, okay, you can do it as long as you pay royalties to us. And Samsung is like, hey, these are our parts, we can make it ourselves. He's like, please, for the sake of our friendship, let's just pay us a small bit, okay? It's not such a big deal. But Samsung refused. So Steve Jobs ended up saying that he would spend every last of his dying breath stopping Samsung from taking over.
Yeah. So okay. So now now that you have a good background on the MacBook, let's talk about one of the most popular types of Apple devices. Of course, I'm sure you all know about it. It's called the iPhone. So
No, so like we said about the iPhone, 2007, all that, and let's go back to the time, and let's talk about Android. Okay, so Android is just a tiny company. It's created by a guy called Andy, and they changed that to Android because he was so geeky. And what happened was many people just thought they were just some silly software company, and you know, Android, to its bare bones, it's actually open source. So what happened was Google ended up buying Android, and then Android started to make their first operating system to run on phones like Samsung, because Samsung is now competing with Apple, like I said. Oh, and speaking of Samsung, let's talk about the time when they repaired relations, and that's when Tim Cook came along, and that's a story for another episode. But that's how Samsung and Apple end up using their long, like decade-long fight with each other, and
yeah.
that's the short story. Anyway, so going back to what we're saying about the iPhone. Yeah, go ahead, Skyler.
Okay, so of course, many of you have probably known about the iPhone and its success. In a short time, we so after we explain all our products plus a couple of most like frequently asked questions by everybody like around the whole internet. So we're going to be talking about the Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, AirPods, and what's with the ports removal? Like on the new MacBooks, there's no USB port, and most people use that. And 20 facts about Apple and why it gets so hot. Because if you use a MacBook, you probably know it gets really hot. So let's talk about that now. So
Okay, so no, before we do that, let's first talk about the iPad. So, many people might think, oh yeah, the iPad is just a stretched out iPhone, and the reality is, no, everything was brand new, everything was redesigned, everything was absolutely different, and it was absolutely new. It's absolutely awesome. It's absolutely like redeveloped, and it's just amazing. And what happened was that sold even faster than iPhone because the people saw that the iPhone was a reliable device. It worked well, and new devices had already come out. They were expecting the iPad would be the same. So the iPad sold out like hotcakes, and the customers delivered a good user experience. And this also happens to do with the software. The software is also redesigned and not just stretched out over the new iPad and the iPhone. That would just bring a bad user experience. And because developers saw that Apple was a well-established company, they had 3-4 years of sales. They started making apps for the iPad, which are brand new and made specifically for the iPad. So the iPad is an overnight. Okay, so after that, the iPad it just started shooting in sales. And let's talk about the competitors. The reason why Google's tablets or Samsung's tablets they're just not up to the mark is they're basically just duplicates of phone software and stretched out phone components. So that's the reason why they're so low cost.
So now we'll go into the new now we'll go into the most popular one called the iPhone. Okay, so I'll talk about this, Tyler. Yeah. Okay. So many of you probably already know what an iPhone is. So an iPhone is basically, one second. Let me. Oops. I guess I. Okay. So
Like we were saying, so let's go to 2000. Let's go to the release of the iPhone 3G.
yeah. So it all started. So what is iPhone? So an iPhone is basically a phone. So let me pull up my 1 second, guys. Let me.
Basically, the Motorola chip, and then put a touchscreen on top.
Yeah.
Or
So
not a Motorola chip, a chip that was like 5 times the speed of Motorola, and then a touchscreen on it. Basically,
yeah.
that's the simplest. That's the in simplest terms.
So iPhone.
Okay, so let's go to the release of the iPhone 3G.
Yeah. So about the iPhone. So the iPhone is a smartphone made by Apple that combines a computer, iPod.
Like we said.
Yep, a computer, iPod, digital camera, a cellular phone. If you don't know what that is of course if you have a phone and you're out and you're on a road trip or something, and you need Wi-Fi. You're not gonna have your home router and Wi-Fi. You're gonna have, so that's why Apple
Cellular data.
Yeah, all phones made mobile data, aka cellular data, which is put into mostly all phones. The iPhone, and cellular phone into one device with a touchscreen interface, which means of course it's touchscreen. The iPhone runs on iOS, which is
operating system.
Yeah, iOS operating system, and as of 2017, there were 2.2 million apps available on the Apple App Store. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a Google Play Store. So there were 2.2 million apps on that place. So how?
So like I said, when developers saw that the iPhone was successful or the Mac was successful, they were willing to make apps for it because they knew that they would end up making some money along the process.
Yeah. So now what does the so now that we know about the iPhone and how it like how it works, but how is it designed, like how is the display, how is the sound, how is the camera and things like that. How is the first generation iPhone, which is the first iPhone introduced by Steve Jobs at 9:41 a.m. So if you don't know why I'm if you don't understand why I'm saying 9:41, it's actually because if you see on an iPhone ad, it'll always show. So
if you look on the screen right now, it says 9:41.
yes, so let me pull it up. So iPhone 12 ad. So if I can get one quick
It already says one in that GIF you're putting up. So 9:41.
Oh yeah. So let me quickly show my screen and show you guys what I mean. Okay, sorry. So that means so if you see in this ad which I'm seeing, you can see that. So let me forward a bit faster. Okay, so if you get right over here, so if you see right here, right there, if you zoom in, that shows 9:41. That's so, and if you see another time, okay, so that's all I could show you for now. So if you see another time, it'll also show 9:41. Look in almost like probably 99% of the Apple ads show 9:41 as the time. The reason is because of this is that that 9:41 is the exact time Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone, the first iPhone ever. So so the iPhone first generation was introduced on 9:41 at 9:41 a.m. So the display of the iPhone first generation is 90 millimeters. So let me see if I can put up a quick.
And 90 millimeters is around 9 centimeters.
Yeah,
that's
so
quite large.
So this is, so let me show you. Let me put up a quick view of the first. Sorry, let me put up a quick view of the first iPhone.
And it had like a very low megapixel camera, but we'll talk about why the camera was put there.
Yeah.
Very shortly.
So let me quickly put in an. Let me show you guys a quick image of it. iPhone. Okay, so sorry guys. So here's the iPhone you can see on the screen right now. So that was the type of iPhone, and the display on it was exactly 90 millimeters, which is about 90 millimeters to
about 9 centimeters.
Yeah, 9 centimeters to about 3.5 inches. So you guys can imagine that. And then
that's actually quite wide for a phone.
But it was diagonally. So yeah. So now if we get our so now it's 320 by 420 320 by 480 pixel resolution. So of course
basically 480p.
Yeah. So if you check right now, if you check right now,
it's low resolution because there's low resolution, medium resolution, HD, high definition.
Yeah, so right now the iPhone 12 resolution is much better than that. So back then the iPhone first generation resolution was 320 by 480. Now if you buy an iPhone 12, which so many people are using, you'll get a 2500 by 1200 resolution. So that's
basically a little bit more than 1080p HD.
Yeah, which is much better. You can imagine if
HD is much better than low definition.
Yeah. So if you use the iPhone, if you use the iPhone 12, you can and then that's about 2500 by 1200 pixels. So 320 by 480 is too small. Like, it's extremely bad.
Alright, now speaking of that, let's talk about some problems with Apple, because there certainly are some. And and one big problem is that of very low storage. And basically the reason why is basically cost cutting. They realize that a lot of people they just don't really think about it unless they're buying it at the first hand, because let's just say 64 gigabytes is usually enough, but that's just the regular storage. I'm talking about RAM. Like they give 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's just not acceptable because random access memory is very very important. And I would think that they'd have at least 12 gigs of RAM. And and this would be when the memory is used up and you need extra. That's a problem. And the random access memory gets used up very very quickly. And that's kind of an issue. And I think it's more of a cost cutting measure. And another cost cutting measure is everything is made. Most Apple devices are just made in China, and yeah, that's a big cost cutting measure because labor there is really cheap.
Yeah, almost
Now,
like yeah. These days, almost
I'm
all
not saying
products.
China's bad at all. They're actually quite advanced, but labor there is cheap, and they're kind of abusing the employees. But anyway, so let's go back to another problem. Why do they remove ports?
That's
And they started that with and they started that by removing the USB-C port,
so.
and
One second.
that was originally gonna appear on the second or third generation iPad.
Also, one thing about the ports is, yeah, like if you most people around the world like a year or two ago always used to use USB ports. That's extremely common, right, Tyler?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And actually, Apple was about to put USB-C, but
yeah, but
it was just an act of impatience that they didn't because it was about to come 1 year later. So they ended up creating the Lightning charger. And why didn't they get rid of the Lightning after when the USB came out? That's because designing a port or anything for that matter is very very expensive. Kind of just be like throwing away money that you spent on designing it. And again, that's a cost cutting measure because well, why wouldn't they try to cut costs? Because everyone thinks that they're a good company. Anyway, or they're a good quality company.
yeah.
Now
So
let's talk about the headphone ports. So the headphone ports, it's a more interesting marketing solution, and they removed it on the iPhone
but if you
7, I think.
if you think about it, actually, Tyler, if you think about it, so many people use USB, and Apple wants so many people to use their product. So that's basically so
It's kind of like you can only have a USB-C port, but you can no, you can only have a Lightning bolt. You use your Lightning bolt
so you might think like
for your phone, but you cannot use that same port on your computer. As
like
the USB-C,
so many people will probably be thinking, why would Apple remove the USB port? Like
it's
the
just a cost-cutting measure, like
yeah,
I said before.
that's like the most used thing ever. So you might be thinking why. So yeah, so like Tyler
It's just
said,
a cost-cutting measure, like I said, because they invested so much. Why would they just get rid of it, right?
yeah. So
All right, so let's talk about the headphone port. So that is more interesting marketing problem, and the reason why the headphone port was removed was because on the iPhone 7, right after they debuted it without the headphone port, they released their AirPods, and it kind of for that seamless wall garden experience. You would have to get the AirPods, and they charged an insane $150. But I barely think that was worth 50, and 50 including paying out the salaries and everything. And if you were to actually take that for its regular value, I think that would be worth less than $30.
yeah,
The reason why it's so expensive is they just want to make profit, and B, they are capitalizing on the fact that everyone thinks that they are a high quality product, and it's kind of unacceptable to do that. And
Also,
I
yeah. So one more thing you said about like speaking about like the sports, Apple, I think it was this iPhone or the last iPhone, they actually removed their whole charging brick. Like so on the iPhone they switched to Thunderbolt, and at the
they
same
did,
and at the same time. At the same
and
time,
the reason the reason why they did that?
why, Tyler? Tell
Because
us.
the big reason why they actually removed the port is because for quote unquote ecological conservation reasons. But in reality, unless you're a previous iPhone user, you would have to buy one anyways, and that'd just be kind of counterproductive, and they just take extra money. So again, in essence, all of these removing factors are that of just cost cutting.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what happened in the Apple II, where instead of 40 chips, they put only 2 chips. That's cost cutting by 20 times. And yes, and it doesn't mean that their phones are any cheaper. They're one of the most expensive on the market.
Also, yes, the reason also about ports, there is a reason why they took out their whole charging brick in their new iPhone 11 or 12, because the reason is they're trying. They announced in one of their things. They said they're trying to be eco-friendly, which means like they don't want to.
Like I said, environmental reasons.
Yes, environmental. So then they don't. So then you'll have to buy a different. Have to buy a whole one, or sometimes you can, if you have a MacBook, you can even charge your phone from that. So that's also one thing you can do. And a quick tip, guys, if you didn't know, you could actually charge your phone from your computer if you didn't know. So instead of using power from the US or from the port to your, or from the wall, like from the plug to your computer, so that will be giving its own power of energy. And then doing the same thing for a phone, you could just charge your phone with your computer, so that'll just be one long stretch. So that'll be, I don't know if it's better, but I whenever I used to do that. So yeah. Okay, so now we'll be taking another like 2 minute break and be coming back in like be back in a quick 1 to 2 minute break. Okay, guys, sorry about that. We took a quick a couple minutes break, and we're back. Okay, wait 1 second. Let me change this. Okay, so now we'll be talking about the Apple Watch. This is another one. Let me add one more. Okay, sorry guys. So we're gonna start the Apple Watch. Give me a second while I put it up. Okay, so what is an Apple Watch? So an Apple Watch is a line of smart watches produced by Apple of course. It incorporates fitness tracking, which is like a Fitbit. Encourages you to like stay fit. Health oriented capabilities like running, walking, swimming. Wireless communication, like, which is basically like
There's the AirPods, and it continues with fitness. It has like breathing apps. It has the App Store. You can download apps on it. You can do all sorts of things, right?
yeah, sorry, yeah. So what yeah, so it yes, yeah. So let me put okay. So how does what's the Apple Watch design? So actually no, let's see, when was it announced? So the Apple Watch was first announced by Tim Cook in September 2014, and the latest version of Apple's wearable shipped the next year in April. Since its birth, the Apple Watch has been changed a bunch from the way it was first marketed. So how it was first given, like how it was first how it was first announced, it has changed a lot. Also, there is a special. So just like I said about the iPhone, there is a there is so just like I said about the iPhone, about how it's at 9:41 every single time they've done an ad. Just like that, on the Apple Watch, there is a certain way they every single time they position the Apple Watch, but I don't remember it just yet. But yeah. So now, so with the Apple Watch, there's so how is the new one? How is the Apple Watch Series 7, which is probably coming out this year, designed? So how is it designed? So actually the design is completely going to change. So it's the Apple just did Apple did a design from the iPhone 12, which is which is iPhone which is from the iPhone 12, where they completely made the sides completely flat. So Tyler, if you don't know that, remember they completely made the sides flat, just like unlike.
Yes, exactly. I do remember.
Yes, so just like that, the Apple Watch Series 7 is going to be the same thing, just like that. So that's going to happen for the Series 7, if you were wondering. So yeah, so now so of course at the end of all of this, we're going to be talking about we're going to be showing you on like the specs about the devices. So yeah, so next we will talk about.
So what is the specs?
Sorry, yeah, so we'll do that after the we'll okay. So now one of the main questions people ask, which is one of the main, like, which is probably the like the most frequently asked question for anybody. So yeah, if if you normally use a MacBook, at now, like if you bought a MacBook for the past few, like in the last a year or something, you would have known that because of COVID, like you might be wondering, isn't an iMac better? But because it's bigger screen, bigger display, better resolution and everything. so one of the main reasons to buy a MacBook instead of a iMac, if you have like an option between those two, a Mac, is because you want to be able to move it around. You want to be able to move it around like to your bed, to like if you're working like upstairs and downstairs and like to work or something. So, and if you have done this, you might have realized that it gets really hot. So you can hear that, like if that happens, you should be able to hear the sound, which is pretty easy to hear. So why
Air cool.
Yeah, air cool, yeah. So why does this happen? So soft surfaces like your and it'll most happen when you've put it on your lap, a bed, a blanket, a carpet, like anything soft places. So like soft surfaces like your lap, a bed, blanket, carpet floor may be comfortable, but they can also cause your Mac to heat up. This is basically due to the fact that there's poor air circulation when you place your computer on a softer surface, and it needs proper airflow to keep it cool. So if you hear your Mac heating up a lot, like it's really loud, the best thing to do is don't shut it down, because don't shut it down. What you should do is you should just close it and turn your Mac upside down. So then it'll have good air, and it'll have good air, and it can be easily it can cool down.
Of course, this cannot be done with the bigger iMacs.
Just
keep that in mind.
The good thing about the iMac, let me put an iMac on the screen if you guys want to see. 1 second. Let me put an iMac picture. Give me Skyler, you want to talk quickly about the iMac while I do this?
Yeah, so the iMac, like we have a brand new one. The old iMac, it was kind of inefficient, and what I had is like a huge and ineffective motherboard. Okay, it was not ineffective, but it wasn't the best at all, and it could certainly be much better. And so what they've done is they've made the new Mac, and what they've done is they've managed to do something which is kind of impossible. They managed to make the thing thinner at the computer, and then put less air cooling, but make it more effective of cooling. And yes, that's the old Mac. That was the one with the one that's on the screen is the one that is not doing really well.
Yeah.
It's the one that's just not up to the mark. So put the new Mac on the screen now, and you'll see the difference, right? The old Mac, it now looks very, very chunky, not very good.
Yeah. So let me put so let me so this is what you can see right now on the screen is an old iMac, which is way better. It's completely changed. The old iMac is it's much worse. So the difference between, so as you can see on my screen right now,
like the main difference is the new one is they have
thinner.
Different colors, and the new one is much thinner.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to, so the old iMac is so of course there's a huge, right now you can see on my screen, there's a huge difference between the old iMac and the new iMac. So this old iMac is actually like, see how chunky, like fat it is, and so that's the problem. This old iMac could still heat up and become very hot. So of course this one, it wasn't the best thing back then, because also the size was much smaller. But if you look on this if you look on, oops, sorry.
This is the one that we're about to show you, like the new one. That's like the intermediate one, the brand new one that they released at the new event is even thinner than this one that's on the screen.
Yeah. So if you look,
put the brand new one from the new event, like the just new one.
Huh?
Like put the absolutely brand new one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, sorry guys. So the brand new one is, of course, the brand new one is here about like a month or two ago, barely anything. So let me show it to you guys. This, what you can see right now, is an old version of the iMac, which is,
it is basically the intermediate middle version of the iMac.
Yeah. So this one's way better. Like this one. I mean, of course,
Like the
every
brand
time.
version is way better.
Yeah. So as you
And
can.
I'll explain how it's able to be much thinner, and I'll also explain how. See, it looks much thinner, and
But in
it
the.
doesn't look as ugly with like the black out frame and all that. It does not look that ugly. So what it looks like is, the reason how they're able to make it so thin is actually the M1, as we were talking about below. That was mentioned on the big Mac that you could carry
Yes.
on. Now they put the M1 chip inside the computer, so the M1 is very efficient, and they managed to lower the cost so they could put it inside a cheaper computer. So the M1 is, so that's how they're able to use less power, put smaller fans, put smaller motherboards, put smaller everything, and that's how it looks much better, and that's how it also is much easier and operated to use, and that's also how it's more practical, and it has more storage, basically more everything.
Yeah. So but in heat wise, like if you're trying to look like for something that's heaty, like if you, of course, what we were just talking about, like if your Mac is too heating up, the old iMac which you can see right now on screen isn't this could heat up really badly. So but this one, this one and the old, so this one and, sorry, not this one, yes, so sorry, this
Okay,
one, this one and this one could actually.
So let's move to 20 interesting facts about Apple.
Yeah,
right?
but yeah, before that, this one and this one could this one and this sorry, this one and this one could, because on the bottom there's actually, below that there's an air vent which can, so then it like the air can easily escape. On the MacBook, you'll have to put on a flat surface, so it's the air is being blocked by the underneath surface, so you can't see that. Okay, so now we're done with why it gets so hot. So let's move on to 20 interesting facts. And before that,
I will take over now. So let's talk about the 20 most interesting facts about the iMac. So put up
yeah,
something about that.
so you can talk while I put it up, teacher.
All right. So what the first fact is an